Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby. I'm going to just introduce the committee members and staff briefly. We have committee members in attendance this evening: Dan Collins to my right, Dylan Bailey online, Dylan, Adam Mottershead to my left, and Fabia Billing to my far right, and myself, Kevin Antonitis, as chair. Staff members present this evening are Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, over here, and Dahara Abiwardine, sitting over here, the Secretary-Treasurer for the committee. Just a brief announcement regarding live streaming. Members of the audience or the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. I'll just outline the procedures for the meeting as well tonight. The purpose of the application and any relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of the decision, please email Dahara, Secretary-Treasurer, at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the Town of Grimsby, the minister, or a specified person or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent or minor variance to the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT, within 20 days of the date of giving notice under Section 17 that's completed for consent, and the same for a minor variance decision. Specified persons and certain public bodies include public utilities, but do not include an individual or community association. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak. Each participant may speak only once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you're called, please, we ask that you state your name and address for the record as well. Agencies commenting on applications may request certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does any member of the committee have a pecuniary interest with respect to the applications that are before us this evening? No. And I have declared a conflict on the third item on the agenda, 172 Main Street East, which has been filed with the clerk. Request for withdrawal, there's none, I understand, or adjournment. So the first item on the agenda then is the approval of the minutes for the Committee of Adjustment meeting December 19th, 2023. The members have had an opportunity to review the minutes from December 19th. Are there any questions or comments about the meeting or minutes? No? Then I have a motion moved by Dan Collins, seconded by Fabia Billings, that the minutes be carried. The minutes be carried. Are there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any, was carried. And then tonight we have 3 applications in total. So we're going to call them out individually, and then Dahara will go through a brief presentation and summarize the correspondence that we've received from various members of the public or committee, agencies in the planning department in particular. And then we'll allow the applicant or the agent to speak to the application if you'd like to elaborate and respond to some of the questions or comments that were raised. And then we'll open it up to the committee members for questions and comments. And then we'll give the members of the public an opportunity to speak. We'll just ask that you come forward to the lantern or the lectern here if you can, if you're not online. Dahara, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just share my screen here. So the first application on the agenda is A3123, number 12 Iroquois Trail. The purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a 2-story building to permit the east proposed driveway entrance or exit to a lot to be located within 4 meters of any other entrance or exit measured along the street line, whereas no entrance or exit shall be located within 9 meters of any other entrance or exit measured along the street line, as per section 5.11B number 3 in our current bylaw. This is an image of the site plan as was circulated on the notice. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. And these are the current conditions of the site. These are the agencies that provided comments, and I will just summarize those for you. So the planning or public works staff had no objections or conditions for this application. No comments from the MTO because the location is outside the MTO permit control area. Grimsby Fire or the region offered no comments as well. Grimsby Power commented to say that the proposed driveway must maintain a minimum of 1 meter clearance from the existing poles and guying or anchoring. And back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is the owner or the representative here or online?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Michael Allen from ACK Architects Studio, Inc., representing Vermeer Canada.
Did you wish to elaborate or briefly outline the reasons for the request?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. To kind of start off, as we started this development, Vermeer Canada, they have facilities all over Canada, and they're locating their corporate facility here in Grimsby. So when we embarked on the project, we worked exclusively with the planning department to develop their program and satisfy the needs on this site. And partly what, as you can see in the diagram or the site plan that was provided, we needed access around the building. And part of that was for the request by the fire department. So we wanted to be able to not only get the vehicles and the servicing of the property, but we also wanted to put a fire route down both sides of the property and have proper radii and turning radii into the property. So seeing that the property to the east, although being in existing condition, it didn't allow us to satisfy that 9 meter. We were able to maintain a 4 meter separation to the adjacent driveway, giving us a bit of a landscape buffer on that. So that's really it in a nutshell. And then if there's any comments or questions to what we've presented, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee members first? No? None? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this matter at all? Iroquois? No? If not, then do I have a mover and a seconder? If you could read the motion and the reasons for.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the application, and let's read the resolution out. Resolve that minor variance A3123 for 12 Iroquois Trail to permit the east proposed driveway entrance or exit to a lot to be located within 4 meters of any other entrance or exit measured along the street line, whereas no entrance or exit shall be located within 9 meters of any other entrance or exit measured along the street line as per section 5.11B3 in zoning bylaw 1445 be approved without conditions. And the reasons is that it meets the 4 tests. It's meets the intent of the official plan, zoning bylaw. It's desirable for the development of the land, and it's minor.
Thank you. Adam, seconder. Dan? Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any. It was carried. So it was approved subject to the 20-day appeal period before it becomes final.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Okay, the next application is A33-23, 233 Englehart Road. Dara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a 2-story single detached dwelling and to specifically permit the erection of a building as a dwelling on a lot where another dwelling already exists, whereas Section 4.7A of zoning bylaw 1445 as amended does not permit the erection of any dwelling on a lot where another dwelling already exists. This is an image of the site plan as was circulated on the notice. And this is a picture of the neighborhood for context. These are the current site conditions. And these are the agencies that provided comment. So I'll summarize the comments. The planning department required 2 conditions. Number 1, that the existing dwelling shall be removed following the occupancy of the newly constructed dwelling. Number 2, the applicant enter into an agreement with the town in accordance with Section 445, 9.1 of the Planning Act to implement Condition 1. The Public Works Department required 2 conditions. Number 1, town staff will require lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating the existing drainage patterns for the lot and to ensure all stormwater runoff is contained within the respective lot and will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. Number 2, the applicant shall apply for an entrance permit to construct the proposed driveway access onto Englehart Road for review and approval by the town staff. The Niagara region required 6 conditions. Number 1 is similar to the first condition of the planning department, where they wanted the existing dwelling to be demolished upon issuance of the occupancy permit for the proposed new dwelling. Number 2, that the owner be informed of the following advisory clause. Should deeply buried archaeological remains or resources be found during construction activities, all activities impacting archaeological resources must cease immediately, and the proponent must notify the Archaeology Programs Unit of the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism and contact a licensed archaeologist to carry out an archaeological assessment in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act and the standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologists. In the event that human remains are encountered during construction, all activities must cease immediately, and the Niagara Regional Police, as well as the Cemeteries Regulation Unit of the Ministry of Public and Business Services, must be contacted. In situations where human remains are associated with archaeological resources, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism should also be notified to ensure that the site is not subject to unlicensed alterations, which would be a contravention of the Ontario Heritage Act. Number 3, that a constraints analysis and respective terms of reference and impact analysis, if required, be prepared and submitted for review to the satisfaction of the Niagara region to screen for and confirm the extent of all natural heritage features and areas, implement mandatory buffer requirements, and screen the property for supporting features and areas, enhancement areas, and linkages consistent with the Niagara official plan. Number 4, that any approved mitigation measures as recommended through the constraints analysis and impact analysis, if required, be implemented through a development agreement between the owner and town of Grimsby or other suitable mechanism to the satisfaction of the Niagara region. Number 5, that the existing septic tank for the dwelling is properly decommissioned through the septic permit. Grimsby Power commented to say that Grimsby Power's conditions of service will not permit 2 separate residential electrical services originating from GPI's distribution system to be installed on the same lot. The proponent should contact engineering@grimsbypower.com for servicing options. And the following agencies had no comments, that is Grimsby Fire and the Ministry of Transportation. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is the owner or the representative here this evening? Would you like to come forward and briefly outline the request and maybe respond to some of the conditions or recommendations from staff or other agencies? Sorry, could we just get your name and address for the record too?
Do I have to press the red button or is it on already? It's on, okay. Todd Barber, Forest Green Creations. I'm the designer for the house, and I'm going to speak a little bit to aid in the process here. because I'm so tall. That's the problem. I want to talk a little bit about when I reviewed this application. I wasn't part of the start of the process, but I've been helping along with this project. A couple things. We've already been through with this submission for building permit that we had to deal with before. It's in for building permit, but it can't be reviewed because we're trying to get through a few of these subtleties, such as maintaining the house on the property so that the client can continue to live there while they aid in the owner-built initiative of the house. It's more of a convenience and economy type of situation. Grimsby planning staff came up with a solution to try and satisfy that used the Committee of Adjustment to do it by talking about getting a variance to keep the existing house. That's how I understood it. In other municipalities professionally, we just entered into an agreement with council straight away, not going through the variance process. And I bring that up specifically in this case because when I reread this after getting the conditions from the region, I'm thinking that something got a little twisted. And that is, it might have been the language for how it had to be written for the variance, and it got written that we getting a variance to build the second house, when we always thought about it as we want a variance to maintain the existing house temporarily while we build the new house, because the new house we can build as of right. And even go further than that, the Public Works is asking about the grading plan, which we already went through, a multi-month grading plan review, which has been accepted, and we have a grading certificate. So that condition doesn't need to be in there. So with it being sort of backwards, I want to sort of talk about these conditions that seem a little bit restrictive and cost prohibitive for this. Given that we can build the house as of right, we've already gone through the grading certificate with Public Works. The new entrance location is approved in writing, although we haven't paid the entrance permit fee yet because it's not necessary. It does seem to be an unnecessary burden to have to do an archaeological assessment on an agricultural field that's been plowed and managed for centuries already. Secondly, it doesn't make sense to have to do a constraints analysis on a farm field and a property, again, that's an open field that we can put the house as of right. So I do know that unless there's some other conflicts, this committee, under the Planning Act that Mr. Basic brought up in his comments, Section 4591, you have the right to issue approval for this and strike those conditions. So really, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted you to look at this through the eyes of the application. Similar in nature is to maintain the existing house while we build a new house as of right. Enter into the agreement to do so temporarily with council so that after occupancy we take it down, but to strike the requirements given by the region. We do have a regional septic permit already and have had it for a couple of years now, and we've renewed it annually. So the region is involved, and they have approved the septic, and they're in favor of the house as far as that standard is concerned. So those are the points I wanted to make about this this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There was two people. Did you want to speak as well? I know it's, okay, no problem. Questions from the committee member first?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at the site plan for it, and the existing dwelling says it says proposed farm help house. Can you elaborate on that?
The Ferraris are building a farm operation there, and they had desired to do it as a farm help house, thinking it would be a good place to house their staff. However, the technical path for that through the municipality is quite difficult and onerous with a site plan agreement. So we were looking at a shorter path to be able to keep the second dwelling there, because the farm help house, what happens in 2 years when the house is done may not be the same as what we need now. So originally, it was desirable to keep it as that. However, the path administratively through the municipality was difficult. It's something that could always be revisited later when 2 years have gone down, the farm has been developed further. But right now, this is the stopgap measure to be able to keep the house because the client does reside there now.
So for clarification, you're not objecting to the house being demolished after the occupancy of the new house?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is what the plan is currently, and for all intents and purposes, that's a reasonable plan because, like I said, that lot changes in a couple of years.
How large is the acreage? Sorry, I didn't catch it. Maybe it's in the material. How large is the property itself? You're-
Yeah, a little under 32 acres.
Any other questions from the committee members before we open it up to the public? Dylan? Dylan? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Walter has any comments based on the applicant's request for the deletion of the two requirements from the region. I know typically we have endorsed conditions by the region for property, so I'm just perhaps want sort of some comment from staff on those, as well as if there are certain things through the planning process that have been met, are these things that we would include as a condition, but when put into force, they can be checked off the list, so to speak. Just so I'm clear, because it sounds like some of these things have already been done through another parallel process, which I'm fine with. I just wasn't sure how they're handled at the conclusion of our committee's decision.
Thank
Walter.
you. Through you, Chair. With regard to, I'll start with the Public Works conditions. Those conditions may be redundant if they've already been satisfied, but there's no harm in putting them in there. So that's a wash from my perspective. The region's conditions. The only opportunity for the region to ask for these conditions are that there's a minor variance. So if the owner were to remove the existing building or dwelling and start construction on the new dwelling, the region wouldn't have an opportunity to ask for these conditions. So, which is the case in many circumstances. So, I really don't have a comment with respect to the need for the conditions. So, I can't answer that question for you.
Adam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, it's a comment to Mr. Basic. Is the property located in an area of, I think it's the regional official plan calls it high archaeological potential? Because if I remember correctly, if it is, then it does require an assessment.
Yeah, in order to require something, you need a planning application, which is like a minor variance or a site plan, but there wouldn't be a site plan requirement in this case, or if it was subdivision. Those would be the circumstances under which these conditions can be required or asked for. I don't know whether it's within, this is mapping that we're not privy to, so I couldn't tell you whether or not, maybe Dilhara might have if you read through the comments, they normally say whether or not it's within an area of high archaeological potential.
So in other words, to summarize, Walter, if the owner was coming in for a single-family building permit and there was no house on there already, they would basically be approved, other than the entrance permit and septic permit and things like that. So this is basically the region piling on because they have a chance to, because of the variance request. Because I would agree with the applicant, it seems pretty onerous for all these studies to be done for a house, for a single-family house. So, I mean, they took the opportunity because they could, but. Any other questions before we open up to the audience? Is there members of the public that would like to speak to this application on Englehart? Oh, sorry, Dylan, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to add, Mr. Chair, that in the requirements as well, given the size of the property, and I think is where the new home is going to be built, if in addition to those regional requirements, the lot grading and drainage plan is also required or not. I know it seems to be a standard condition for many of the applications that we're considering, but just given the size of the lot, unless perhaps the house is being located closer to another property, but I would just to add that that is something, that condition as well, we may wish to consider removing.
And it sounded like it was already completed anyways, right? Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, actually, the map that you're seeing that's circulated is the grading plan. And through that process, it took multiple months. We had to send the surveyor to survey the farm field to actually show the grades where it was going to be plowed. So we did toe the rope to make it happen, and it's been approved, and we have a grading certificate. Thank you.
So it would be redundant anyways if it was left in. Okay. I see someone has their hand up. I'm going to open it up to members of the public. So I don't know your name. I just see an Abbott House.
Yeah, it's Jill Abbott. Address is 213 Englehart Road. We're directly adjacent to the property where the new house is going to be built. We're actually quite looking forward to see the enhancement to this property. We have no doubt that our neighbors will do a fantastic job doing this. Our biggest concern would be from the drainage and grading, as we do have excessive water coming onto our property right now from that. But from what I'm hearing, they have done their assessment and passed it. So hopefully our drainage issues will be fixed when that is done.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public? Yes. Could we just get your name and address for the record? Yeah, if you don't mind. He'll step back for you, make room.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee. I live at 265 Elm Tree Road West, which is a stub of a road off of Englehart. My name is Paul Van Zeidenborg. I don't have any issues, particularly with the house being constructed there. That doesn't bother me at all. What concerns me is the concept of two houses on one property. I particularly don't agree with this concept. It's one house per property. I have knowledge of the past in that area where Allen Road, which is just behind this property, runs parallel. House was built, I presume another variance of sorts was construed at that time. And the house was built but never completed. The house was started in approximately 2007, 2008, and it was never finished until about 2021 or 2020 when another owner purchased the property and completed the house. That's a good amount of time. I do not wish to see this sort of operation go on. I wish that this property would be developed, redeveloped, upgraded. The owners have done wonderful things with the barn that's back there and have cleaned up quite a bit of the property. So as again, like one of the other neighbors has testified, I don't think there's going to be an issue with that. I just do not want to see a property, a house remaining, a second house remaining for years on end with no closure. I think this variance, if it was to be accepted, should have a closing day on it, whether it be 2, 3, 4 years. It sounds like everything's ready to go. Sounds like you could wrap this up in 2 years, in my opinion, based upon what I've heard here from the designer and the desire to get this going. I know that the current owner, has been in residence for approximately 3, 4, 5 years. I'm not exactly sure. Time flies, especially during COVID, and they're anxious to get going as well. I don't really have any other comments other than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Walter, is there a way to put a time limit on a variance? Is there? I thought we did it for another one. Or is it time limit? Because I have the same concern as these drag on. These self-built homes not always, drag on and on and on. And if they don't technically get an occupancy permit for the new one, the second one can remain forever.
That's something that we were contemplating putting in the actual agreement itself, but the conditions, the applicant would still have to enter into an agreement with the municipality, and there may be terms and conditions like that that identify a stop or an end date. But again, given once, I'm not sure if there's a concern, like Is it, if it's is it the desire of the committee to require the applicants to leave the premises if the new dwelling is not constructed yet within a certain period of time? Because that would be a situation, and then we'd be forced to revisit another variance application if a specific deadline was put in, right? So I'm not sure what the intent would be with that, other than just having an artificial deadline. If it's still under construction, it's not occupied, right?
But you're saying they could put that in the agreement under a recommendation, condition number 2?
We can, but it's, again, it's something that we contemplated, but it's something that the committee needs to consider. You know, you could be faced with a situation where if for whatever reason the new dwelling is still under construction and we breach the deadline, then you'd be faced with another application for minor variance.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Just to clarify and to enter into the records, the address that I speak of is 229 Allen Road. So if anybody wishes to look that up, I'm sure there's past committee meetings minutes which reference this location. And just to address what Mr. Basic has put down, I would tend to think that would be not a very onerous concept to revisit this in a couple of years if necessary. If you put a reasonable amount of time on this, you would be back here, and I don't think it would take a lot of time here if, you know, to get that decision at that point. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Adam, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I actually did a bit of research on this online. I tried to find another case at another committee adjustment. It was similar, and the closest I could find is, I can't remember the municipality, but it was basically a similar kind of situation where they wanted to keep an existing house. And the way the conditions are written here, I do have concern about the fact there is no actual time limit. In the other municipality, they said that prior to the occupancy permit being issued, that they had to obtain the demolition permit. And then once those two things are done, they had, I believe, 90 days to demolish the existing dwelling. So I don't know if it's something the committee wants to consider or.
So you can't get one without the other. Phoebe?
Mr. Chair, I have, I'm kind of thinking along the same line about a time frame. If you've ever lived on a property or beside a property where building has gone on, and personally, I had a house being built beside me and it went on forever and then it stopped construction. So I think a timeline, 2 or 3 years, is fair. And then if we have to address it again at that point, because I'm sort of concerned about one, septic system for both houses on that property, and 2, maintaining 2 properties during a couple of years or 2 or 3 years. So I think it's a fair thing to ask to put a time frame on.
I'm just not sure how we can word it, or if we can direct staff to put a time frame in the development agreement, because it comes down to enforcement, right? It's going to be, how do you enforce it?
Oh, I have one more thing to say, sorry. The other question in the back of my mind is, once the house is built and completed, then what's the timeline on tearing down the secondary property that's on, the secondary house that's on that property? Is there a timeline, Walter?
Yeah, these are details that we can incorporate into the agreement. So usually it's a matter of, usually we give a month or 2 months.
Like 90 days?
Something like that.
Okay.
60 days, 90 days.
So is that
That's typically what
understood?
we've included in other similar agreements. Now,
Okay.
in there shouldn't be any concerns with septic. It's a 32-acre lot, there's plenty of room on the site. Buildings aren't being built close together.
Right.
All right, so that's not an issue. What was the other question? The timeline.
Yeah.
So the timeline, this is something that we can incorporate into the agreement. You can direct, or what I would suggest is that if the committee feels it's appropriate to have a timeline put in there, that the condition read that a timeline be incorporated into the agreement. But not necessarily specifying what the timeline should be. Then that way, if necessary, we can adjust the agreement without having to come back for a minor variance, which I think would be onerous for this kind of a situation.
Okay. And to Adam's point too, I think he talked about making it a condition of occupancy that demolition be obtained within first, sequentially, so that you can't get occupancy without demolition.
Okay.
Yeah, this is something that would be incorporated into the agreement also.
As the designer, do you have a timeline set for the completion of the home?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my involvement in the construction will only be as needed. So the owner's been working with some contractors and establishing that, but hasn't been able to get out of the gate yet just because we have had several roadblocks that we've had to overcome. And we're in the final stretch here. So shortly you'll be able to get that information, but I know they're anxious to get going and have had time to establish the wherewithal to get through it in a timely fashion. So I don't think the discussion of timeline is a problem. I do really think it's well placed with council, so that if, who knows what could happen, if there's something, then it doesn't have to stir up the committee and the region and all of those comments at that time again. Just while I had the mic, I did want to address the neighbors' concerns about drainage. And typically, when you do a grading plan, then you have to prove that you're not adversely affecting others. That's typically done by a property boundary swale. In this particular case, we've created a drainage system to relieve those properties from the water and take it onto this property into that pond, and that's been accepted. Okay, so we've actually gone above and beyond. The farm will be taking the water. Okay, so you should have no problems. All right.
I did notice the pond on there. So Paul, you don't have to go out, just from there is fine. We can hear you.
I have difficulties hearing the members speak.
Oh.
So that's why I get up and speak.
To your point, though, the conditions that we're attaching to the approval, it's Walter. To the conditions that there are being suggested that we attach to the approval, connects it to a timeline and requires the existing dwelling to be demolished. And we're suggesting it be prior to occupancy permit of the first. So we're going to tie it down with a time frame, not let it go on. Yeah. Anyone else? You had your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So I was looking back at the correspondence from the region, and they too talk about archaeological potential. I'll just share my screen here and read out that section as well. So they specifically mention archaeological potential. The PPS and NOP provide direction for the conservation of significant cultural heritage and archaeological resources. Specifically, Section 2.6.2 of the PPS and Policy 6.4.2.1 of the NOP state that development and site alteration are not permitted on lands containing archaeological resources or areas of archaeological potential. unless significant archaeological resources have been conserved. The subject property is located within the Niagara region's mapped area of archaeological potential on Schedule K of the NOP, indicating that the property has the potential for the discovery of archaeological resources. As such, regional staff will require that a Stage 1 archaeological assessment be completed at a minimum, along with the required acknowledgement letters from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. The report and acknowledgement are to be submitted prior to any development or site alteration occurring on the subject property. In accordance with the NOP, the required archaeological assessment can be scoped to the area of the proposed development footprint. Thank you.
Okay. Is it Jill? Jill, do you still have your hand up?
It is, yes. Just one more quick question. If approval is given and everything goes through, do we have a kind of an assessment of when start date might be, when the new driveway will go in off of Englehart? Because obviously with construction, it will increase traffic on our road.
Over to you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's, given the road we've taken so far, that is a difficult thing to answer. But I would assume it's midsummer if everything goes well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the, go ahead. Sure, yeah.
So I appreciate.
Before we, can we just get your name and address for the record?
My wife and I are the owners of the property.
Sorry, yeah, we forgot the online people can't hear you then if you're talking in the room.
I'm sorry. Thank you to my neighbors up there. I just want to address my other neighbor here. We are 4 to 5 people living in 900 square feet. Nobody wants to get into the new house more than us. And we certainly, since we have started, have, I think our neighbors will agree, have done things first with the neighbors in mind and then with our plans in mind. Everything from cleaning up the property, removing barbed wire, to trying to clean up the thing, from making it a better place for everybody to be around. Working with a fantastic architect and friend, Todd. And we have stumbled a few times, but we have done a lot of things at our own costs, working with, if you're aware, the pond development, which was kind of the biggest stumbling block that we had. We consigned Ducks Unlimited to help us with the restoration of the existing pond, which took us almost an extra 8 to 9 months to get here, which if we would have just said we're going to not do anything there, we could have been already at the permit stage, which is what we were told by the town, I think, which we said, listen, the whole project of what my wife and I envisioned, which was this new way of permaculture and nature being there, we had to do everything all at once. We worked with the government to plant over 8,000 trees in a forestry, whatever you call it, replanting. Our plan is to make it a better place for wildlife and for planting and for the animals and things and for the neighbors and our family. So just to address that one point. To address the other point, I'm not really good at these things, and I know that Todd addressed, and the chairman, I mentioned it, if we were to be building a new house on it without an existing house, we wouldn't have to do an archaeological. Kind of, you got my $700 already from the region, not you guys, them. And if you want more, I'll do it, but it's kind of like, it's frustrating at this point. So to go to the point of when it will be built, as soon as we can, number one. Number two, pre-COVID, we were budgeting 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years. With the supply chain issues, 2.5 to 3.5 years. I hope not, because I want to be in the house. I'm hoping and I'm pushing for 2 years. Okay, just to address a couple of the other things that we have been doing with our community and with our farm and with our nature and with our neighbors in mind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Paul? Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Ferrari, Mike and your wife. I certainly agree and speak to the point that Mrs. Abbott there, Abbott's house, also made, that you've done a wonderful job in the neighborhood, and things look great over there. I just have the fear of ongoing, and unfortunately, there's a case in point directly behind your property and my property that was the case in point. That gentleman with his two daughters lived in a less than 900 square foot house for in excess of 13 years as he built or not built his house. And I, with all due respect, certainly think and agree that you are going to build it quite quickly, and as soon as you can jump through these remaining hurdles. So, and in connection with the archaeological dig, when I built that section of Elm Tree Road that extends off of Englehart back in 2009, Mr. Basic was involved in the approvals and all the town work as well at that time. And I ended up doing the archaeological dig too, because I just needed to get this done, because, you know, it took a long time to get that property going as well. So I truly understand what you're going through. So I mean no ill intent, just would like to get something in paper, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Jill, you have your hand up.
Just a quick comment. Mike and Susie were really excited about seeing this project move forward. We heard a few details when they started out and know that COVID definitely set things back a little bit, but we are, as their direct neighbors, excited to see what it's going to look like and see the project move ahead. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close it off now, and if there's no questions from the committee member. Oh, did you want to wrap up, Todd?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, just one more thing regarding the region's conditions. I don't believe there was a site visit, but one thing that, and we do archaeological investigations on multiple properties, there is a lot of dismissal of an archaeological assessment when they discover that your site has been disturbed by agricultural plowing and tilling. There's also that when you're digging less than 2 feet deep with your construction. So particular in this planting of this house, the house is only being dug in approximately 20 inches into the ground, and it's being built up with the excess from the pond. So relative to scoping the archaeological investigation to where the house is sort of a wasted effort in this particular case, whereas item 3, making us aware, I think that condition, that we put that on the grading plan and we make that a prevalent stamp in the construction documents, I think that'll cover it off, that during construction and excavation, if anything is discovered, we deal with it promptly at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just any further questions from the committee members first, then? If not, do I have a motion? If you could read them with the conditions as printed or amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that I find it resolved that minor variance application A3323 for 233 Englehart Road to specifically permit the erection of a building as a dwelling on a lot where another dwelling already exists, whereas Section 4.7A of Zoning Bylaw 1445, as amended, does not permit the erection of any dwelling on a lot where another dwelling already exists, be approved with certain conditions. And the conditions are that the existing dwelling shall be demolished upon issuance of the occupancy permit for the proposed new dwelling subject to this application. The applicant enter into an agreement with the town in accordance with Section 45, 9.1 of the Planning Act to implement Condition 1, and that this agreement shall include a time limit deadline for when the new house must be finished and the existing house be torn down. The applicant or shall apply for an entrance permit to construct the proposed driveway access onto Englehart Road for review and approval by town staff. that the owner be informed of the following advisory clause: should deeply buried archaeological remains resources be found during construction activities, all activities impacting archaeological resources must cease immediately, and the proponent must notify the Archaeological Programs Unit of Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism and contact a licensed archaeologist to carry out an archaeological assessment in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act and the standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologists. In the event that human remains are encountered during construction, all activities must cease immediately, and the Niagara Regional Police, as well as the Cemeteries Regulation Unit of the Ministry of Public and Business Services, must be contacted. In situations where human remains are associated with archaeological resources, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism should also be notified to ensure that the site is not subject to unlicensed alterations, which would be in contravention of the Ontario Heritage Act. And lastly, that the existing septic tank for the dwelling is properly decommissioned through the septic permit.
Thank you. Seconder on that motion? So there was a few taken out or removed. Adam? Any further discussion on the motion with the conditions as read out? All those in favor say aye, or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So it was approved subject to those conditions as were read out, and there's a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Okay, so for the third and final application, as mentioned, I've declared a conflict. This is for A0124, 172 Main Street East regarding the temporary parking. So I've declared a conflict, the nature of the conflict being the application is made by Ellis Don for the property adjacent to the lands owned by the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation. So we own the property right next door. I'm currently the chair of the foundation, and I have regular and ongoing dealings with Ellis Don representatives and the hospital in my current role. So I'm going to step out of this meeting at this point. It's the last item, so Adam's going to take over the chair.
Okay, good evening, everyone. As stated, the next application on the agenda is A0124 for 172 Main Street East, and I'll hand it over to... I'm having trouble hearing you. Sorry, is this better? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is 172 Main Street East, and that's application A0124, and I'll hand it over to our Secretary Treasurer.
Excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so the purpose of this application is to permit the necessary temporary uses for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital redevelopment project for staff parking, to permit the use of land and the erection and use of any temporary building or structure for a construction camp, work camp, tool shed, scaffolding, or other temporary building or structure incidental and necessary for construction work off premises for which a building permit has been issued and not expired, but only for so long as such use, building, or structure is necessary for such construction work which has not been finished or abandoned. Whereas Section 4.3 of Zoning Bylaw 1445 as amended permits temporary uses only on the premises for which building permit has been issued and not expired, but only for so long as such use, building, or structure is necessary for such construction works which has not been finished or abandoned. This is an image of the site plan which was circulated with the notice of hearing. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions of the site. And these are the agencies that provided correspondence. And I will just summarize the correspondence. Planning staff have no objections or conditions. Public Works staff require one condition, which is that town staff will require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating the existing drainage patterns for the lot and to ensure all stormwater runoff is contained within the respective lot and will not negatively impact nor rely on neighboring properties. The Niagara region has no comments at this stage, however, offers the following comments for the site plan stage should it be required. Do you want me to read them out? Yeah. Yeah. So the road widening at this location, which is 172 Main Street East, the Niagara official plan width for the regional road number 81 is 26.2 meters. For the subject site, a road widening of approximately 1.59 meters at the west limit and 1.53 meters at the east limit to be determined by field survey to achieve the recommended width is required to be established parallel to the existing road limit. Please note that the Main Street East ROW through this area is irregular in width due to the age of the underlying fabric. Regional permit requirements. Regional staff will require plans showing the details of the proposed entrances along with a parking layout plan showing the number of parking stalls and access configuration be submitted with the permit noted below. Staff will support only one access for the temporary parking lot and the access configuration and dimensions to be as per TAC or NR access management guidelines. The plan should also show the opposite existing accesses. Additionally, once construction is complete, the entrances will need to be closed and reinstated. Require regional construction encroachment and entrance permit prior to any construction within regional road allowance. Regional sign permit required for any signs within 20 meters of the center line of the regional road. And then they have given a bunch of links for more information. And the following agencies are no comments. That is Grimsby Fire, Grimsby Power, and the Ministry of Transportation. Back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the agent or the applicant here or online to speak to the application? If you can, just state your name and the firm.
That one. There we go. You hear me? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my name is Max Murray. I'm the Senior Project Manager for Ellis Don Construction at the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital. I'm authorized agent for Noja Enterprises, who is the property owner at 172 Main. So the intent of this application is just for a very short-term, very temporary parking pad for our project staff. We have a off-site parking arrangement in place for all of the project tradesmen and workers and visitors. This is just to facilitate the working professionals within our project management team to staff our site office that's just across the street from this property. So as you see in the site plan, there are two existing entrances off of Main Street that we would intend to use. We don't have any intention to do any work within the regional limit for those conditions you had flagged for road access allowance and signage permits for the region. We don't believe that would be required with just utilizing the existing entrances. And again, our intent would be just a temporary granular pad for the duration of our construction project at the hospital. So probably just on the other side of a year or so. Which would then be removed and completely reinstated. Throughout our time on that property, we would protect whatever trees and other vegetation which would remain. Our intent is really to just limit impact on surrounding properties and neighborhoods. The parking in that area of town is very tight, as we've come across, so we're trying to take measures to ensure we're not impacting adjacent property owners in the area with the parking that we require to deliver this hospital. Obviously, this is a big undertaking, this project, and the area surrounding the hospital is not necessarily suited for facilitating the things that go into a project such as this. So we are doing our best to take these measures. This does seem like a very straightforward and quite simple process. Hoping we can get some support to to utilize this system. The one question I have is regarding the road widening requirement. Is this just an extension of the road allowance, or is it a physical road widening?
Thanks. Walter, would you care to speak to that, or?
Just the road allowance, okay. Okay, other than that, there's, I know there was some discussion in the conditions that Delara had read off about permit requirements. We have talked to the chief building official, who has confirmed, since we are building no structures, temporary or permanent, that no building permit is required. It is just a granular pad to allow us to park some vehicles on. Parking would be just during construction hours, and would have temporary security gates in place that would be utilized to control the property in our absence if we're not there. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the committee members have questions to the agent? Dylan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I'm in support of this. I don't have an issue with it. I just was, since it's just such a busy area of town, I'm just thinking of safety and sort of, you know, with more cars turning in and out, but also people crossing there as well. Is there, or would there be any considerations when this is implemented, or would there need to be, I guess is my question, any type of, you know, sort of traffic calming or crossing or anything like that that's required? Or I'm just sort of thinking that area is just sort of becoming so intensified with vehicle traffic. This just adds to it. So just want to keep safety in mind. I'm not sure that it's within our purview to do anything, but I just think that it's just sort of on my mind when I drive by there or drop people off at the hospital, that it's such a busy area, at least for the time being, and will continue to be.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we're not necessarily adding any vehicle traffic beyond what's already there. We're just giving the vehicles a better, more defined place to go. Those vehicles are already there parking in adjacent properties that we have separate agreements with, and do also cross roads and stuff as is. So we're not really adding anything to the condition that's in today. We have to the condition it was in a year ago. But as it stands today, this application does not change anything to the current setup. We're just cognizant of spreading our vehicles around into other people's areas, and we'd like to have a place to contain them, so we're not spilling out further than we already are. I don't know, Walter, if you can speak to crossings or pedestrian control or anything like that, if there's a requirement.
Yeah, I don't believe the region is going to be requiring anything, but again, there will be a site plan application that will be submitted to the town, and the region will partner with the town to review the site plan application and implement any necessary measures as we deem necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just actually had a question of the agent. Since this is a temporary use, I know it's kind of always a moving timeline, but what do you expect the usage duration on the property?
Like I said, it would be at least until spring of next year. So at minimum 12 to 14 months, depending on what kind of impact we have on site. If we need to keep that level of staffing around further, once the hospitals complete their later phases regarding demolition of the existing and so on. So at minimum 12 to 14 months, I would for sure no more than 2 years.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up. Is there anyone online? Oh, okay. Open up the questions to the public, either online or on the floor here. So if you want to step up to the microphone, just give your name and address for the record, please.
Is this on? My name is Robert Scarpelli. I'm the owner of 168 Main Street East, 2 doors down from the vacant lot. And I apologize, but my comments will exceed 5 minutes. And once you start hearing the comments, you'll understand why. There's a bit of, I find the application package very vague and some clarity has to be given. So I'd like to put my comments into 4 buckets. One is background clarification. The second one is the process. The third one is the merits of the application. And the last one are impact comments. With regard to background clarification, as I understand it, we have an applicant, which is a private Ontario company, owns a property located at 178 Main Street East. The property is currently vacant and zoned Main Street residential. The applicant has entered into a commercial lease with who? Can somebody answer that, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, well, if you continue, we'll have the agent address your comments after.
There's a series of questions. It might be easier if you ask them.
Yeah, well, we can't have it back and forth.
Will you allow me the opportunity at the end to go through my questions and make sure they're all answered?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. So who's renting the property? The planning staff memo alludes to Ellis Don Corporation being the proponent. So as I understand it, a commercial entity, a private Ontario company, has entered into an agreement with another commercial entity, a construction company, who in turn has a commercial agreement with a public entity, the hospital. So the matter before the Committee of Adjustment tonight is about granting a variance that will commercially benefit the private Ontario company that owns the land, the construction company that is being compensated for building the hospital with the taxpayers. The variance that is being sought deals with construction of a building permit. In whose name is the building permit for the hospital in? Is the hospital saying that we need the variance to go through or we can't open the new hospital? The document doesn't state that. The process. Does the town know the applicant is breaking the town's zoning bylaw as we speak? The current site is breaking the zoning bylaw. They're already using it as a parking lot. Why has the town not done anything about it? Is it appropriate for the Committee of Adjustment to consider an application when the applicant is currently breaking the town's zoning bylaw? Would the committee like to answer that now, or do I wait at the end?
We'll save your questions to the end.
Are there any rules that govern the Committee of Adjustment with respect to situations where the applicant is currently breaking the law? Does the Committee of Adjustment think it's appropriate to continue this meeting? By allowing this application to move forward tonight, each and every member of the Committee of Adjustment is saying that this illegal action is acceptable. Are you sure that you want to establish this precedent? And just to be clear, this is not a situation where the applicant is saying it doesn't matter what you decide we're doing because we'll do it anyways. If the Committee of Adjustment approves this application, how can the Committee of Adjustment have any confidence that the applicant will abide by any conditions that are included in a positive approval? Moving on. Can the Committee of Adjustment please confirm that it has made available to the public the entire application of the applicant, and that documents in the package are considered acceptable to the COA to make an informed decision and for a proper public review by adjacent landowners that will be impacted? For example, the package that is contained on the town's website about this meeting starts with the site plan. Where is the copy of the actual application? That application is the official document that states what the applicant is asking for, why it cannot comply with the current bylaws, assuming here that they will provide details as to why this is the only option to acquire land necessary to fulfill their contract with the hospital, the legal description of the property. Just to let you know, before doing any work on the property, they should ensure that they actually own the property. My property 2 houses down, we discovered that the official land surveyor of Ontario made a mistake. So hopefully they haven't started taking down any vegetation to confirm that they actually own the property. and it would be a reasonable condition of this committee to ask for actual land survey done on the property. Page 42 of the package online does not give details of who wrote this, and it seems incomplete. For instance, the page states that someone does not have any comments regarding the minor variance application at 172 Main Street East. However, further on it states that staff will support only one access for the temporary parking lot. The site plan diagram included in the notice of hearing shows 2 access points. Which one is correct? And who wrote that document? Page 43, a memo from Walter Basic to the Secretary Treasurer of the COA. The memo states the town had a meeting with the proponent for a formal consultation for minor variance in the forthcoming site plan application. What does the hospital site plan application have to do with the matter before the COA tonight? The memo states that the variance is to support a temporary parking lot. If this is the case, why is the applicant asking for more to permit the construction of construction buildings, so forth and so on? If they're asking for a parking lot, shouldn't the request be for a parking lot? What will occur on the site if the applicant is granted the variance? The parking lot or all the other conditions? Because the other conditions really say you can have anything on there related to construction. The town's assessment of whether the variance meets with the intent of the official plan has more to do with the hospital site plan than it has with the application before the COA. In fact, the only thing it states about the application is, and I quote, staff view that the powers of the committee to be sufficient to decide a potential temporary use of the land when the proposed use is considered to be minor variance from a zoning bylaw. Further, staff consider the parking lot consisting of approximately 20 stalls to be a reasonable scale, especially when setback from adjacent residential uses. First of all, I don't know what setback from residential uses mean in this context, and is this a proper assessment? Do the variance meet the intent of the zoning bylaw? The variance meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. That's all it states. Are we dealing with multiple variances? So I'll repeat this. Do the variances meet? That's what was stated in the document. Are we dealing with one variance or multiple variances? This section of the memo goes on to state, the use of the vacant parcel of residential land as a parking lot is not a permitted use per the zoning bylaw unless it's a temporary use in support of development. Is this the type of assessment that is acceptable to the Committee of Adjustment? Is this the type of assessment the Committee of Adjustment expects the town to provide residents so they can make informed comments on the impact? Further in this section, the town again talks about the hospital. What does the hospital and its tight site have to do with the application before the COA tonight? Even further, town staff are of the opinion that the off-site parking may be considered necessary. So the staff acknowledges that the parking isn't necessary, but it may be necessary. What is it? Is it necessary or is it may be necessary? That's what the document states. Shouldn't the assessment of the variance request by the town staff be largely focused on whether or not there's a need for additional off-site parking? If the applicant is asking for the use for off-site parking, shouldn't the assessment be of, is there a need? The rest of this section of the planning memo is awfully confusing as to what the comments pertain to. Are the variances desirable for the appropriate development or use of land? The sentence isn't complete. As long as the duration of use is, and it stops. Am I supposed to complete the sentence? How would you complete the sentence? Page 1 of the memo from the Department of Engineering Technologists to planning staff. Applicant is made to permit the necessary temporary use for the WLMH redevelopment plan for staff parking. So is it staff parking of the hospital staff or staff parking of the construction company that is doing the services? Because the notice of hearing, what's in the background documents and what the sign is on Main Street keeps reverting to different things. So what is it? First, so regarding the Department of Engineering Technologist, first, what does necessary mean, and is this person qualified to determine what necessary means? So they write a report that says this is necessary. What have they done to determine if it's necessary? Second, the variance request is for more uses than staff parking. So if you're asking, if the applicant is saying we need it for staff parking, then why they're asking for a variance request that allows them to do multiple things? In conclusion, have I been provided a complete copy of the application and a thoughtful and professional assessment of the merits of the various requests upon which I can satisfy myself as to the impact of my property? My answer is no. Does the Committee of Adjustment consider this package to be acceptable upon which to make an informed decision? Before I provide my assessment of the application, I like it to be noted that I strongly oppose the Committee of Adjustment assessing this application at this time due to the applicant is currently breaking the law. They're actually breaking a zoning bylaw, which they're actually currently seeking to change. The package that I've been provided is incomplete to fully assess the potential impacts on my property. The town's assessment of the application is at best incoherent, not on topic, and incomplete. Now moving on to the merits of the application. The application is...
Sorry, I'm just going to cut you off here. If you can just maybe give a 1-minute summary, because you've gone for 10 minutes and we normally allow 5 minutes.
I haven't even got to my comments on it because of the document put forward doesn't allow it. If that is the case, do one of my neighbors allow me to continue to use up some of their time?
No, you can't. They have to speak individually.
Cut me off, if you will, put it on record. Merits of application. The application is better dealt with as a zoning change as opposed to a variance request. The economic relationship at the heart of the application is between two commercial entities. This application is not about supporting the hospital. The owner of the hospital and its building permit is not directly party to the land rental agreement. Section 4.3 of the zoning bylaw, 14-45, is a zoning bylaw that's applicable to every parcel of land in the town. Every parcel has the right to do put construction equipment and activity on their own land so long as that parcel has a valid building permit. The hospital site has that right already. Why do they require a variance? I fail to see how the variance requested is fundamentally consistent with the intent of this bylaw. Further, if a variance is granted, what is stopping another construction company with asking for a variance on a residential property so they can engage in commercial construction activity on another site? Where does it end? The applicant has not specifically conveyed its intended use of the property, parking lot or a wide range of construction activity. With regard to parking needs, the town's planning report states the town staff are of the opinion that off-site parking may be necessary, may be considered necessary. Without clear and convincing rationale to support the need for the variance, the application must be denied. If the construction company is the ultimate user of the property at 172 Main Street East, the company made a bid for the construction work, was provided with all the necessary documents, and was given ample time to conduct its own due diligence on site requirements necessary to fulfill their contract. The town nor the neighborhood residents are obligated to bail the construction company out of this situation. Further, construction company was selected partly based on their experience and professionalism.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to cut you off there because you're sort of getting into non-land planning uses.
Comment on the merits of the application, you have to deal with land uses.
Yes, but like I said, you've been allowed, we normally allow 5 minutes, and you've gone well over 10 minutes. So, I mean, if you want to have any other neighbor raise your points, that's fine.
Under protest, I'll stop.
Thank you. Perhaps one of the first things I want to address was you making comments in regard to complete application. I believe if the Secretary Treasurer will confirm that the application was posted to the website.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I've reviewed the actual application from that was posted publicly, and like I say, I access it directly from the town website. Sorry, yeah, no, the application was posted publicly to the town's website, and actually that's where I accessed it. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thanks. There were several questions, I guess, directed to the agent about who's renting the property. Really not sure if that's really relevant to the thing, but maybe you can just elaborate just to satisfy the delegate.
Yeah, sure. We are entering in a lease agreement with Gnosia Enterprises, who is the property owner. So Elliston Construction is leasing on a monthly basis off the property owner.
Okay, thank you. There was also questions directed to planning about, the relevance to, there was basically relevance to the site plan and stuff like that. So I was wondering if you just maybe briefly comment and address the delegates' questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. I put a note required for the development of the site. I think there was a question about, unfortunately, my notes weren't that complete. There was a question about what relevance does the site plan have to do with the hospital? Well, the hospital site is a separate site plan application. This is the establishment of a parking lot. The establishment of a parking lot requires site plan approval from the town. And the applicant will be required to submit a site plan application for our review and for the region's review, for that matter, which will get into the details of what portions of the site will be developed for parking, how far from the lot lines, how many parking spaces will it accommodate, what improvements, if any, to the entrance and exit will have to be made in order to accommodate the safe entry and exit of vehicles from the site. Currently breaking the zoning bylaw. The applicant is here to permit the use. That's the purpose of the application. Package, the package does include the application form itself. It's complete. It's on the website, available to anybody who's interested. What does the hospital have to do with the application? Again, this is an application that was made by the applicants. It's our responsibility to assess the application based on the 4 tests required us for it to be analyzed by the Planning Act, and we've done so. We feel the analysis is complete. I don't concur with the neighbor about the assessment of our review. The assessment of need. I am aware that the parking for employees of the construction site is limited on site. The intent was to maximize the availability of parking for those who need to attend the hospital for emergency services or visitation for patients and for patients themselves. The number of parking spaces that is available has been significantly reduced on site. The hospital needed to function during the construction of the new building, which reduced the availability of potential availability of additional parking on site, which would be required for construction employees and other employees of the construction company that need to attend to the site, including required parking for doctors, nurses, and hospital administration staff. We have been addressing the parking situation with the applicant in terms of where it's appropriate to park, what arrangements need to be made for parking for the employees involved in the construction of the new hospital. And arrangements have been made in addition to this particular proposal for off-site parking and the shuttling of employees to and from the site. Where does it end? If you approve this, you'll approve others. Not necessarily the case. Every application is addressed on its own merits, and we feel that this particular proposal meets the tests of the Planning Act, consistent with the intent of the official plan, zoning bylaw. It's minor and appropriate or desirable for the appropriate development of the land. That concludes my comments. If there's anything else I missed, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just a question while I got you at the microphone. What would be the implications if this was not approved?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yeah, what would be the implications in terms of, effects to the area if this was not approved?
The applicant would be required to, would have to search elsewhere for available parking.
So basically, it would just be moving the issue somewhere else?
Somewhere else, yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this matter?
Can I ask a clarification question?
Yeah, if you make it really quick, like a minute or two, sure. You have to step up the microphone.
You started the conversation, you said, I can ask him all my questions when answering.
Yeah, and I'm giving you this opportunity right now.
Could you please go through this so people that aren't here? No problem.
Actually, the question was for the committee, which never answered, but Mr. Basic answered it. Is the applicant currently breaking the law? The answer is yes. That site is being used as a parking lot as today has been for the past number of weeks. So will it be acknowledged, or somebody acknowledge to the town that the applicant is breaking the law? Question to the committee and every member of the committee, is that acceptable?
You want to speak to that, Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through the chair, we are not here on behalf of enforcement. This is not a committee that's to decide if a law is being broken or not. We are here just to decide the merits of this application and whether or not this minor variance could pass or be approved or not. So we cannot speak to that, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the audience? If you can just come up to the microphone and give your name and address, please. Thank you.
I turn this on. Oh, it's on. Patricia Wilk, I live at 170 Main Street East. I live next door to 172. So I just want to be clear, how I initially found out about this parking lot was sometime in October. I had a knock at my door on a Thursday afternoon. Someone from Alice Dawn said, oh, by the way, we're putting a parking lot next door. And I said, I have not been informed by the town. Oh, you wouldn't. It's private. So today there were 13 vehicles parked at the first quarter portion of 172, just to partly private vehicles and a lot of commercial vehicles that obviously are assigned to the subcontractors. My concerns, worries, and comments about this parking lot are this. It looks to me like they want to expand to 20 spaces, which means they're going to be heading south on the lot. There's going to be some spaces that are going to be facing east-west, north-south. The spaces that are east-west are directly going to impact my property. As it stands now, a lot of the workers are there well before 7 a.m. Their vehicles idle, their lights are on. Majority of guys usually park their trucks backing in, so I will have headlights on the section of my property that I use the most. I do not have a fence up. We have never had any need for a fence up because this has always been just a vacant lot for a long time. So that is something that it's the privacy issue for me is huge because this section of my backyard is going to be completely exposed to trucks, and the guys are constantly in and out of their cars during the daytime, and I spend most of my time in this section just right outside my house. Also, I just want to make clear, on the application form, it's asking for buildings, and I just want to know yes or no to construction buildings on this use of land. Because if you're going to be putting on construction buildings, you're at risk, you've got a vacant land with construction buildings, and you're at risk for vandalism. And the history of this lot, I will tell you, there was a house there, the woman sold the property, the house sat vacant for a very long time, and the house was vandalized, and then thusly it was demolished through the force of some of the town people. So that's the history of the lot next door. We bought the property in '86, and I have lived there since 1989. I'm also worried about the drainage. That lot is soggy. The lady that, when the house actually was there, she always had water issues. I am not completely clear about this gravel platform. I don't know exactly how far it's going to be from my property line. My house is 1872. I have a stone foundation. That lot is soggy and has always had drainage issues. So these are my big concerns: my privacy, my safety, my security, my drainage. And I also want to make clear there are, on the properties of 172, there are two maple trees, one walnut tree that are within close proximity, and then there's a row of bushes. So I just want to make sure, are they tearing down these at all to accommodate for what they need? Because they want to put 20 parking spaces in, which is going to have a huge impact on my property adjacent. So I just want to see if there's anything else that I have to make clear. Also, too, are they putting on any lighting? If they're putting on lighting, I want to know where and what type of lighting. I know it was not discussed in the hearing, but light pollution will have a huge impact because I have a beautiful piece of property. I'm well treated at the back, but my first section is not well treated, and I am going to have vehicles constantly in and out, and will have no privacy whatsoever. And then I just want to make sure that once this is all complete, is all this gravel going to be taken away? And will there be the need to continue on with parking for staff or something for the hospital? I want to make sure that this gets finalized. And thirdly, the garbage on that property, and some of it is on mine, is atrocious. I think that's everything I needed to address. Let me just check. Okay, I think that's everything. If I think of anything else, I'll come back up.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to ask the agent to step up, and I kind of jotted down the questions here. And do you want me to give me a one by one or just give a summary of them?
Yeah, sure. May as well go one by one.
Okay, privacy mitigation. Are you going to put screening or anything up?
We can put up, we had plans to put up silt fencing along both property lines, so we can put up a 6-foot-high silt fence, which is basically a fast fence with a black screen on it.
Okay, and what about the buildings?
No buildings. In the original application, at the time when we made the application, we were debating potentially going to put a temporary construction trailer there on wheels still, just for expansion of office space. We have since rearranged our offices on site and freed up a bit more real estate for ourselves. So no buildings, as I had mentioned in the original preamble and discussion with the chief building official that no permits would be required from a buildings perspective.
Okay, thanks. There was a question about drainage, and I believe, I guess, the lot grading and drainage plan to the town would address that. What about the existing trees that are on there?
Yep, site plan clearly states the trees to remain and be protected along with all other vegetation, as well as reinstating of the site back to its current condition and removal of the gravel pad. That's all indicated clearly in the site plan.
Okay, you stole my last question, but I got another one. It was about the lighting. Any mitigation measures there, or time?
As far as lights being in place there will be no lights in place there. We're not planning on putting any light structures or temporary lighting in place. There's no services on the property of any kind.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to speak to this application? If not, I believe we have someone online. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Dylan. Go ahead.
Certainly, sorry, Adam, I can't see you. I just see the other podium. So I just perhaps, so I just have a couple of quick things. Just for clarification as to who'll be using the temporary parking lot. Is it sort of general construction staff? Because my understanding from what was said and from what I've read, this is going to sort of be senior project staff from Alice Dawn who will be there. So again, I'm sure that you work early and can work late as well, but I just wanted to confirm that it's not, or that sort of who it's going to be used for, and that it, is it going to be overflow for construction vehicles or anything like that? And my second point, just while I have the microphone, just so the wording of the variance, I know, talks about buildings and things like that. I'm assuming that comes from the zoning bylaw. But if it would make things clearer or simpler, I am happy to have that, specifically state a parking lot and no buildings, if that's at all possible, as well as adding a timeline that it can be no longer than, I believe we heard, 2 years, or we could say no longer than December 31st, 2025. So just some suggestions for clarity, because I know that these temporary buildings have come up, and it obviously seems like it's a concern. So perhaps those things might add some clarification, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Dylan. How does the applicant feel about having a timeline put on the application, or if it's approved?
Yeah, we would support that if that eases this process a little bit. And in regards to who's using the parking, from Dylan's first question, it is our project management staff team. There's 12 to 14 of us on a daily basis, plus a handful of consultants and subcontractor supervision that are a little bit vagrant. They come in and out as they need for their purposes. So it's not consistent. Some days we may have 6 or 7 vehicles there. Some days we may have up to 20. So, but it is not overflow for construction trades. It is for the management team that is executing the project itself.
Okay, thanks. And I just sort of had a question. I was just looking at the variance. It said, as the one neighbor addressed the question of buildings, there's tool shed scaffolding. Is that still necessary, or?
No, it won't be used for site storage.
So it would be exclusively parking only?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone? Yeah, is there anyone online who would want to speak to the application? I don't see anyone, but just not sure, so they might have the camera turned off. Okay. Any further questions from the committee members or comments?
I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry. What I actually need clarification is this. I had asked for, when this initially was happening, I asked for a survey. So there are survey sticks there. I need to know what's the amount of space between my property line and this silt fence that you're putting up. How thick is the silt fence? Because I want to make sure that my property is protected with privacy and with lights and things like that. So I want to know how far this fence is. And I have a photo of exactly where, because I would like whoever is doing this, heading up this project, to have a look so that they can tell me exactly where this fence is going to go. If this thing goes through, because this highly impacts me. I'm the one that's going to have to live with this for almost, well, probably a year and a half up to 2 years. So that's it.
Okay, thanks. Agent, want to address any of those questions?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the first part, we do have a OLS survey of the property completed. It's incorporated in our site plan, and the setbacks to each property line is shown with dimensions on the site plan.
Are you able to, do you know offhand what the setbacks
I believe to the west property, it was approximately over 4 meters. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look at the plan again.
Okay, thank you. Any other further comments from the public? Yeah, absolutely. If it's short, go ahead, yeah. You have to step up to the microphone. Just briefly.
With all due respect, you can't say it's short. If I'm asking a question of a comment that's made, you can't say that. Would it surprise the committee to understand 2 trucks today are parked right on the property line? So when we ask about there's going to be a setback, if you'd like to see pictures, they're parked right on the property line. That's the first question. The second question that was asked of Walter Basic answered it was, which is a fair question. And you asked the question, is there alternatives? Why can't the existing parking lot at the park be expanded? Construction workers already parked there. Why can't Cole's property, which is vacant, they're put up parking lot for hospital users to that, why couldn't that be rented? And that one, why does it have to be this site? Why can't the current site be reconfigured to accommodate more vehicles? If the applicant could address those issues.
So the first comment regarding the currently parked vehicles, that's the purpose of this application, is to come up with a more concrete solution that has proper boundaries and controls in place to control flow of vehicles. As for other options, there's no other real estate on the property. They are completely tapped out for space. The town has allowed us to partner with them and use the parking lot, which I believe is what the neighbor is referring to. That is seasonal, and we have been requested of the town to give that up for a certain season. So we're trying to come up with a more concrete solution. This was the most logical and seemingly straightforward solution with the least amount of impact on the town itself.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the committee members? Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just have a question about the setback. Sorry, I got to get you to stand up one more time. You said 4 meter setback from the west property. Is that 4 meters to the gravel, or is that 4 meters to the silt fence? Thank you.
To the gravel pad. So the fence we'd put up right adjacent to the property line would be the intent. And then that setback is from the edge of the gravel pad.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments from the committee? Anyone online? Okay, if not, do we have a motion on this application? Fabia?
I want to address something,
Oh, sure, go ahead.
before we go ahead. So in the wording of this minor variance, are we taking out most of this, like work camp, construction camp, tool shed? Is that all being removed and just parking lot staying in?
Yeah, if you want to make a motion to that effect, it's up to you.
Okay. I make a motion regarding the minor variance, application A01-24 for 172 Main Street East, to permit the use of the land for temporary parking for the hospital. And the parking was actually not for the construction crew, but the managers of the crew. It's not for hospital staff? Okay.
And that's your motion?
Yes.
And the reasons for the motion?
I think we need to just fine tune the wording. There's a lot of wording that's, now we've sort of thrown out that it's not going to be, there is not going to be a tool shed, scaffolding, or temporary buildings. So does that still need to be in this variance? Okay.
And do you concur that it meets the 4 tests of minor variance?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, is there a seconder on the motion? Dylan?
Yeah, sorry if I'm happy to second or support the motion, but I would like, if it's perhaps make a friendly amendment to add sort of a timeline no later than, or that, for a period, not to exceed, December 31st, 2025. If not earlier.
Okay, how does the mover feel about that?
Adding a timeline, I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that makes sense with this framework.
Sorry, just to confirm, Dylan, that was December 31st, 2025?
Yeah. No later than December 31st, 2025. Given the discussion and the potential need for the
Okay, thank you.
the use of it.
And also just actually to the mover, were you keeping the condition in about the lot drainage plan or removing it? Yeah, the lot drainage plan, yeah.
I think that should remain in.
Okay, so I'll read the condition out. The town staff require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that the existing drainage patterns for the lot and to ensure that all stormwater runoff is contained within the respective lot and will not negatively impact nor rely on neighboring properties. So just to confirm, Dylan, you're seconding the motion?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. Is there any further comments or questions from the committee members on this? If not, Rachel.
Sorry, Adam. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I'm just thinking about this now and just hearing the discussion from the public and again to the mover. I'm wondering if there's benefit to, if we need to refer to, sort of the necessary, necessary fencing and privacy. Privacy mitigation, matters. If we think that we should have that, included to ensure that, at a minimum that the privacy screening is added. We've heard that promise from the
Right.
From the applicant. So whether or not we want it to be included. If it is, I'm fine with that. If not, that's okay too.
Okay, how would you want to word that as, I guess, part of the condition?
Sorry to sort of do this on the fly, but we talked about that to permit, the use of the land as a parking lot with the appropriate, fencing and privacy screening. Necessary for the site and the privacy of the neighbors.
Would you add perhaps to the satisfaction of town staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
My shorthand.
Within the site plan, I'm assuming, right? That'll be contained within the site plan.
Walter, you want to speak to that? Yes. Okay. Does the mover agree to that condition?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe that all fits in with what we're looking at. So the minor variance will read what I just stated, that permit the land to be used as a parking lot, temporary, with appropriate privacy screenings, and to satisfy all the planning staff of Grimsby.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor, raise their hand or show. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the motion is carried. So the application is approved. And just a reminder to the applicant that there is a 20-day appeal period before the decision becomes final and binding. So that concludes that application, and that concludes the agenda. Is there any business that the committee has on other matters? Seeing none, I believe our next meeting is February 21st, 2024, and that would conclude our meeting for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.
Recording stopped.